That Charlotte-Washington game that's going on right now.
Stop. Hey, you're not going to be disparaging my Hornets Bobcats. Con Knipple, Miles Bridges, I just want you to know the Hornets Bobcats are balling right now. Got to give them their flowers. That young man, Con Knipple,
Yes, sir.
is flat out balling.
The Charlotte Hornets recently won 10 of their last 11 games, and somehow, no one's talking about it. Since the calendar turned to 2026, this team hasn't just been good. They've been the best team in the NBA. #1 in net rating, #1 in offensive rating, and they're holding opponents to the lowest effective field goal percentage in the league. This is a franchise that won 21 games last season, a team that's been the laughingstock of the league for years. And now, they've got a rookie chasing history that's never been accomplished, and a coach who just won Eastern Conference Coach of the Month. These are the 4 reasons why, and it starts with the guy rewriting the record books. Con Knipple is averaging 18.9 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 3.6 assists per game as a rookie. But it's not just the volume that's turning heads. It's the efficiency. He's shooting 48.4% from the field, 42.8% from 3, and 89.9% from the free throw line. If you know basketball, you know exactly what those numbers mean. He's chasing the 50-40-90 club. Only 9 players in NBA history have ever accomplished that feat. Steve Nash, Larry Bird, Kevin Durant, Dirk Nowitzki. And now, a 20-year-old out of Duke is knocking on the door. No rookie has ever done it, not one. And Con Knipple has 28 games left to make history. The Rookie of the Year race is wide open right now. Con Knipple is tied with his former Duke teammate, Cooper Flagg. And honestly, the case is there. He's scored in double figures in 33 of his 37 games this season. That includes a 19-game streak where he just kept putting up numbers night after night. Against the Mavericks, he dropped 34. In his hometown of Milwaukee, he went for 26. This kid shows up in big moments. And here's the thing that makes him so valuable for Charlotte specifically. He's not just a shooter. On draft night, some people called him one-dimensional, a catch-and-shoot guy who wouldn't be able to create. But those 3.6 assists per game tell a different story. He can make reads. He can find teammates. He's a connector who happens to be one of the most dangerous shooters in the entire league. That matters because of what it does for everyone else on the floor. When you've got a guy who defenses absolutely cannot leave open, it changes the geometry of the entire offense. Driving lanes open up for LaMelo. Brandon Miller gets cleaner looks. And if you help off Knipple even a little bit, he's going to make you pay. That fits Charles Lee's system perfectly. Catch and shoot, relocate, punish mistakes. The 4th pick in the draft is looking like an absolute steal. And honestly, we might be watching the start of something special. But Knipple isn't the only reason defenses can't figure Charlotte out. Because when you've got the best backcourt pairing in the East, clicking like this, LaMelo Ball is averaging 19.3 points and 7.3 assists per game this season. Those aren't his highest totals, but here's what the box score doesn't tell you. This is the best version of LaMelo Ball we've ever seen. Net rating, best he's ever posted by 5.1 net rating, best he's ever posted by 5.1 points. That narrative that LaMelo is just flashy, that he doesn't actually impact winning, you can throw that out the window at this point. The numbers don't lie. When LaMelo is on the floor, this team is elite. When he sits, they fall off a cliff. He is the engine that makes everything go. And right next to him, Brandon Miller is having his breakout moment. He's putting up 20.6 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 3.3 assists on 56.4% true shooting. He just won Eastern Conference Player of the Week. He's scored in double figures for 17 straight games now. And over that stretch, he's averaging 22.1 points while shooting 50% from 3. That's not just good, that's star-level production. But what makes this pairing so dangerous is how perfectly they complement each other. LaMelo has learned to read the game at a higher level this season. He knows when to get his teammates involved and when to go hunting for his own shot. Against the Mavericks earlier this year, he came out in the first half feeding Kippe, who had the hot hand. Then after halftime, knowing Dallas would adjust, LaMelo put his foot on the gas and started scoring himself. That kind of feel is what separates good players from great ones. And when things get messy, when the game slows down and Charlotte needs a bucket, that's when Miller takes over. He's become the guy who settles things when the other team goes on a run. Every playoff team needs someone like that. The size advantage helps too. LaMelo, at 6 feet 7 inches, is usually taller than whatever guard is trying to check him. Miller, at 6 feet 7 inches with a 7-foot wingspan, creates nightmares for opposing wings. When you've got that kind of length everywhere, you force teams into tough one-on-one situations constantly. Charles Lee has built an offense that maximizes all of this. Since December 18th, when LaMelo came back fully healthy, the Hornets have had the #1 offense in the league. They're not just chucking threes. They're getting quality looks, corner threes, catch and shoot opportunities, clean driving lanes. It all works together. Now, most teams with this kind of offensive firepower tend to give up buckets on the other end. That's just how it usually works. But the Hornets, they're doing something we haven't seen in Charlotte in a very long time. Here's where the story gets crazy. Because everything I just told you about the offense, most teams with that kind of firepower give up buckets on the other end. That's the trade-off. You live with it. But the Hornets aren't most teams. Since the start of 2026, Charlotte has the 3rd best defensive rating in the NBA. They're holding opponents to the lowest effective field goal percentage in the entire league. They allow the fewest corner threes, the 2nd fewest offensive rebounds, the 3rd lowest opponent free throw rate. This is a team that was getting torched on defense for years, and now they're suffocating people. That kind of transformation doesn't just happen. Someone has to anchor it. Enter Musa Diabate. This man is averaging 8.6 rebounds per game, which puts him 17th in the entire NBA. He's posting double-doubles on a regular basis. And Charles Lee compared him to Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman a couple months ago. At the time, that sounded like hyperbole. Now, it's starting to look accurate. Here's what makes his story even more ridiculous. Diabate was a 2nd-round pick. The Clippers waived him after 2 seasons where he barely played. He was an afterthought. And now, he's the anchor of the best 5-man unit in the entire NBA. You can't make this stuff up. From out of the league to indispensable. That's one of the best redemption arcs in basketball right now. What separates Diabate from other centers is his versatility. He's 6 feet 10 inches, but he moves like a guard. His ability to switch onto perimeter players is elite for a big man. He's constantly disrupting passing lanes with his hands. He's not the biggest guy on the floor, but he overcomes that with relentless energy and surprising strength. Some of the most physically imposing centers in the league have struggled against him this season. The numbers back up the eye test completely. Since Diabate became a full-time starter on December 23rd, the Hornets are 11-6 when he plays and 1-2 when he doesn't. In those 20 games, Charlotte ranks #1 in offensive rating, #6 in defensive rating, and #1 in net rating at plus 10.6. For perspective, that net rating is 1.9 points per 100 possessions better than the 2nd best team during that stretch. That's dominance. And it's not just Diabate. It's the entire defensive philosophy Charles Lee has installed. Every drive into the paint gets met by multiple bodies. Every 3-point shot is contested. They funnel opponents into difficult floaters and short mid-range jumpers instead of giving up easy looks. And most importantly, they end possessions on the first attempt. No second chances. No easy putbacks. The uncontested layups and wide open threes that Charlotte used to give up, those days are over. When you're playing top-tier offense and locking teams down on the other end, that's when a hot streak stops being about luck and starts being about identity. the Hornets have found theirs. This isn't a fluke. This is who they are now. And if all of that wasn't enough, the front office just made sure this team has even more firepower waiting in the wings. The Charlotte Hornets haven't acted like buyers in years. They've been stuck in basketball purgatory, never bad enough to get the top pick, never good enough to matter. But at this year's trade deadline, they finally made a statement. They're playing to win now. Charlotte sent Colin Sexton, Ousmane Dieng, and 3 second-round picks to Chicago. In return, they got Coby White and Mike Conley. Now, there's a wrinkle here. After White's physical revealed a calf injury that would keep him out through the All-Star break, the two teams amended the deal. The Hornets got one of those second-round picks back, so the final cost, Sexton, Dieng, and 2 seconds for a guy averaging 18.6 points and 4.7 assists per game this season. That's a real return. That's the kind of value you dream about getting at the deadline. And here's why White fits this team so perfectly. He's a North Carolina native, played his college ball at UNC. He's literally coming home. You can't script that any better. But beyond the storyline, his game is tailor-made for what Charles Lee wants to do. White is far more comfortable pulling up from 3 than Sexton ever was. He can play on or off the ball, which means he slots in seamlessly next to LaMelo without shrinking the lineup or creating redundancy. Once he's healthy, he becomes either a supercharged 6th man who can run the second unit or a flexible starter, depending on matchups. That kind of versatility is exactly what playoff teams need. But what I love most about this move is what it tells you about the front office. They didn't go all in. They didn't sacrifice first-round picks. They didn't blow up the core or force themselves into some long-term commitment they can't escape. This was a calculated bet. Upgrade the backcourt depth. Add shooting. Add playoff experience with Conley, who's been to the postseason more times than the entire Hornets roster combined. And do all of that without mortgaging the future. That's a masterclass in roster building. It shows the organization is serious about winning right now while still protecting what they're building long term. You don't see that balance very often. Most teams panic and overpay. Charlotte stayed patient. Now think about what this roster looks like when White is fully healthy and integrated. You've got LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Kniple, Miles Bridges, and now Coby White. That's potentially 5 guys on the floor at any given time who can create their own shot. 5 guys who can put the ball on the deck and get to their spot. The matchup flexibility becomes absolutely insane. They can go big with Diabate anchoring the middle. They can go small and switch everything. They can stagger minutes, so there's always a playmaker on the court. Good luck game planning for that. And maybe most importantly, they finally have the depth to handle injuries. That's been the killer for Charlotte in years past. LaMelo goes down, the season falls apart. But now, if someone misses time, they've got options. Real options. Not just guys filling minutes, but guys who can actually produce. The ceiling for this team just got a whole lot higher, and they haven't even seen what the full roster looks like yet. And that brings us to the real reason the NBA should be terrified of what's happening in Charlotte. Last season, this team won 19 games. They were the laughingstock of the league. Now, they just ripped off a 9-game winning streak, their longest since 1999. This isn't luck. They have the coaching. They have the stars. They have a system that's produced a top 3 offense and defense since the new year. And Coby White hasn't even played yet. Charlotte hasn't made the playoffs since 2016. An entire generation of fans has never seen playoff basketball in this city. That drought is about to end. The Hornets aren't just getting better. They're becoming exactly what the NBA feared most. A team with no ceiling that's only scratching the surface. And the scary part, they're just getting started.